Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. This is the daily dose of reality for these people out here. At least for my co-host, at least. We get to sit up here and I get to tell them exactly what they don't know because they think they know everything. And that's the beautiful thing about this. So, as you can see, I'm back in my regular surroundings. Before I was, moving around, I was in different places. Now I'm back to where you know me. I'm back around the way. And I'm just ready to get into this NFL season. We have finally survived and we have watched week 1, and I am so excited about this. I can't tell you how excited I am to have watched these games and what a slate of games it was. Now, we're getting to the point where if your team sucks, you probably won't be hearing too much more about them. So there's some teams you might hear in week 2, and there's some teams we're just not going to mention anymore. But we're not going to get too much into that. But very excited about these games that happened. Okay, so let's just start off with the Thursday game. Your Super Bowl winning champion Kansas City Chiefs faced off against the Baltimore Ravens, who they eliminated in the AFC Championship game, and this was the rematch. So let's look at some stats. We're gonna go with I like to always go to the loser stats first. But that's just what it is. Oh, I forgot to say the score. So the Kansas City Chiefs won 27-20 against the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, Lamar Jackson was 26 of 41 for 273 yards and 1 touchdown, no picks. He also led them in rushing with 16 carries for 122 yards with no touchdowns. But Derrick Henry in his first game in Baltimore had 13 carries for 46 yards and 1 touchdown. Isaiah Likely is continuing to show himself as a real reliable a weapon for them. He had 9 receptions for 111 yards and 1 touchdown. Just in terms of picks, Roquan Smith had a pick. That was dope. Let's see. There was some half sacks. Justin Madubuike, he had a sack. Excuse me, a half a sack. David Ojabu had a sack. It was a good time. Oh, and Trenton Simpson also had a sack. So let's go over to the Chiefs side of this. So Patrick Mahomes was 20 of 28 for 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Not much on the ground, but Isaiah Pacheco led them with 15 carries for 45 yards, 1 touchdown. Xavier Worthy also had 1 carry for 21 yards and a touchdown, which was crazy. Rashee Rice came back, led them in receiving, 7 receptions for 103 yards, no touchdowns, but Xavier Worthy did have 2 receptions for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, in terms of them, of course, they didn't have any picks, but Chris Jones had a sack, and I think he was pretty much the only one who had a sack. Yeah. So let's start with the Ravens. So on the Ravens side of the ball, what I thought about this was I really felt like this was Lamar Jackson, can you bail us out again? I think they put a lot on him, and I really am more curious about what the team is. If you remember everything that I've been saying coming into the season, I was worried about if they had enough wide receivers, if the tight ends, if both of them are playing well, if Derrick Henry was going to fit well, and I still have a lot of questions about them. Now, I told you they were a fringe playoff team for me, and I'm still waiting to see if I really feel as though they'll be in the playoffs. So time will tell on that. But I really don't know. And I was actually having this conversation with Tazar. This Derrick Henry fit, man. I don't know. I don't know. He's usually more of a downhill momentum grabbing running back, and now he's playing out of the shotgun, and he's usually those styles kind of conflict. So we'll see about that. But in terms of the Chiefs, the Chiefs just did exactly what the Chiefs do. I felt like the Ravens needed this game more than the Chiefs did. Even though it's just week 1, it just seems like the Chiefs have their number. So the Chiefs didn't disappoint in a game where I felt like the Ravens knew that they needed it more and they were the more what's what I'm looking for, mentally prepared team, the team that was more ready for war, and it still didn't matter, and that's just it's always been like that with these Chiefs. So I'm not mad at them. It was a very good game. It was a very good game, and I'm very excited to see the rest of these teams for the rest of the season. So let's go to another game. So Friday was another good game. We finally this is the first. I don't know if this is the first Friday NFL game we've ever seen, but it was a Friday game. The Green Bay Packers face off against the Philadelphia Eagles, in which the Eagles won 34-29, and they actually played in Brazil. Now that I do know, it's the first game in Brazil that they ever played. Um, it was a very exciting game, very close contest. Let's get to some stats. Okay. So yes, the Eagles won 34-29 against the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love was 17 of 34 for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Josh Jacobs, actually in his first game with the Packers, 16 carries, 84 yards, no touchdowns. But Jayden Reed had a game, 1 carry for 33 yards, but he had the touchdown. Then he also led them in receiving with when he had 4 receptions for 138 yards and a touchdown. And not much more. I'll just say Romeo Dobbs had 4 receptions for 50 yards, but not much more there. Jair Alexander had a pick. Xavier McKinley had a pick. Rashad Gary had a sack. And Kason Nixon, he also had a sack. Very good game from them. Jalen Hurts. Oh, excuse me. Now we're going over the Eagles. Jalen Hurts was 20 of 34 for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Saquon Barkley in his Eagles debut 24 carries, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts also had 13 carries for 33 yards. AJ Brown also had 5 receptions for 119 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith had 7 receptions for 84 yards. And Saquon Barkley also had 2 receptions for 23 yards, but a touchdown. And Reed Blankenship, he had a pick. And in terms of sacks, Zach Bond had a game. Zach Bond had 2 sacks. He he also had like 11 tackles. He had 11 tackles and 2 sacks. Listen, he was balling out. Any other sacks? No. So this is what I'll say about this game. So there was a point in time in the beginning of the game, and this is where I think Green Bay really lost the game. They didn't take advantage, where the Eagles were turning the ball over deep in their own territory. So the Eagles turned the ball over like 3 times in like their own 30, and which means they had a short field for Green Bay, and they only came away with 6 points. The game could have been 14 or 17-0 at that point, and that would have made it very hard for the Eagles to come back. But after 6-0, the Eagles scored, and then it kind of teetered from there. But the Packers really could have had a lead that would have made it hard for the Eagles to come back with. So I feel as though, first of all, a very good game, very highly contested game. Loved watching it. I was looking at this and saying this might be the AFC or the NFC Championship game. This could potentially be it, but Jordan Love also messed up his knee and he's put on IR. So right now I don't know how many weeks he'll be out, but I know he'll be out a pretty substantial amount of time. You can, even if you watch the replay, you can see like his knee go like it moves. So that usually means you're gonna be out a while. Knees don't do that. So once again, the Eagles played a very good game against a very good team. We just got to see what the Eagles are in terms of consistency. Their height, the Eagles' height, is like they could be in a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? They could win a Super Bowl, or we were also talking they could miss the playoffs completely. So we just want to see consistently. I of course think that they're going to be in the playoffs, but we just want to watch their consistent. Okay, so we just want to move on to the next game. We're going to go into it. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but the Saints won 47-10. They looked amazing in this game. I'm actually just going to talk about Derek Carr's stats because we've heard a lot about Derek Carr. It was 1923 for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Yeah, man. Let's get. I'm just gonna keep. I don't have much to say about the Saints. I just want to. I just want to see what they do next week. And the week after. Because last year, if you remember, I put them as my dark horse team, and they just look terrible. So we'll see what happens with them. But I don't know. Vikings and Giants. Nope, don't care nothing about that. The only thing that I'm happy about is that the Giants lost by 20 points, 21 points, because they wore them ugly uniforms. Uniforms are ugly. I don't know who the design person is on that. I'm not even mad at the design person. I hope the design person got a lot of money because the person who hired that person, they don't know what they're doing. Whoever is watching over the design department there, don't let them hire any more people to create uniforms. In the upset of the weekend, the New England Patriots won 16-10. Um, oof. I can't we The New England Patriots were a team that people were looking at and saying they might go winless all year. And the Cincinnati Bengals are a team that I looked at to be bouncing back, rebounding, things of that nature. I mean, this has way more to do with the Bengals and how far they have to go than the Patriots. I think the Patriots are who we think they are. The Bengals, we got to see their bounce back. And I mean, now they got the Chiefs coming in week 2. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. But Joe Burrow throwing for 164 yards, no rushing game. Jamar Chase, 62 yards. I mean, this just wasn't good. This just wasn't good. Um, but I do think this offensive line is still not together, and that scares me. I've always compared Joe Burrow's trajectory to what Andrew Luck was when and this is why I don't like the conversation of all of these wide receivers. Now what you got to do, because you got to protect your quarterback. If a quarterback is great, he should be able to carry some stuff that or some wide receivers that aren't necessarily great, but they're good. And he should be able to take that somewhere, but you got to protect your quarterback, man. And I feel real bad for Joe Burrow, all these hits that he's taken because of this offensive line. Steelers Falcons, I want to hold off on that because I still don't know what we're looking at. I don't know how bad the Falcons are. They didn't look good, but the Steelers defense is legit. But they also didn't score a touchdown. They won 18-10, but they didn't even score a touchdown. So, it was all field goals. So I mean I gotta still pause on both of these teams just to see what happens. Also not going to be talking too much about the Bills Cardinals, but I will go down Josh Allen. Josh Allen was 18-23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. My man was efficient. I'm still sticking with what I said about Josh Allen. I think he's going to be the MVP of the league this year. I think when you lose all of the pieces that he did lose, when I look at most people look at it and say, "Oh, they're rebuilding," and I looked at it and I said, "No, I think he can carry that." I think he can, and I think they were going to be a playoff team and a high seed, and I still feel that way. I feel just like that. So we won't go too far into that. Once again, Titans Bears. I don't know. This has more to do with the Bears because they showed that their defense. The Bears showed that their defense is actually very legit. It's probably better than I thought it was. But Caleb Williams clearly has some work to do to, get into a rhythm because he only threw for 93 yards. He threw for less than 100 yards. That's terrible. But his first game as a rookie, I'm giving him that. They won the game still. So very interesting. So I don't have much to say. They feel like that's what I'm saying. On most of these teams, you got to pause on and see what happens week 2 because a lot of these teams are going to look bad, and then a switch will flip and they'll get that adjustment. I don't even like betting on, it's like sports betting on week 1. I don't even like Dolphins Jags. I feel the same way. Not much to talk about there. We can get into these Cowboys Browns. How about that? Now you guys can see a lot of this, everything that I'm doing is off the cuff, and I love it that way. I love delivering content that way, where it's off the cuff, not planned, because it's unpredictable. Um, so the Dallas Cowboys did beat the Cleveland Browns 33-17. Dak Prescott was 19 of 32 for 179 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Ezekiel Elliott returned, but only had 10 carries for 40 yards and 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, 5 receptions for 61 yards. Brandon Cooks had a receiving touchdown. Eddie, excuse me, is it Eddie? Eric, excuse me. Eric Kendricks had a pick. Tavon Diggs had a pick. Michael Parsons had a sack. DeMarcus Lawrence had 2 sacks. Eric Kendricks balled out. 2 sacks, 6 tackles, 1 pick. He balled out. And who is this man? DeMarvion Overshawn. He also had a sack. For the Cleveland Browns, Sean Watson was 24-45 for 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Jerome Ford had 12 carries for 44 yards, 1 touchdown, not much there. And David Njoku led them in receiving with 4 carries, 4 receptions. I don't know why I keep saying that. 4 receptions for 44 yards. But their touchdown came from Jerry Jeudy. They had no picks. But Dalvin Tomlinson had a sack. Myles Garrett had a sack. Zadarius Smith had a sack. Yeah. Okay. So Dallas, I don't think this has Dallas is supposed to win this game. I know a lot of people said they didn't think Dallas was going to win this game, but Dallas is supposed to win this game. Now, for the Cleveland Browns, guys, I'm moving off of Deshaun Watson and what I think he is. This is what happens. Anytime you start to see a quarterback and with different positions is different reads or different highs and lows data points that you use to say, but when a quarterback starts and when they are good, when they establish themselves as good, if they take a dip in terms of their productivity, they usually don't rebound from that, man. And I think this is it for Deshaun Watson. I don't even think he'll be there next year. I'm gonna be real with you. I think they're going to just eat whatever money that they owe him and just get him off the books. But Cleveland would be the first team that I'm ready to stop talking about. This is not going to be a good season. They're going to come in 4th place in their division. This is not going to be a good season for. So let's get to my Colts. We actually lost 29-27 to the Houston Texans. I gotta still wait and see on my Colts. We lost Samson Mbake to a season-ending injury. We just lost our best corner, Juju Brents, again to another season-ending injury. Usually, when you lose your best pass rusher and cornerback from last year, your defense dips. I think our defense definitely dipped. We could not stop the Houston Texans, and we have a lot to figure out on defense. Offensively, but Anthony Richardson did look very good. What did he have? Let's look at his stats. He was 9 of 19 for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. So he didn't even throw the ball very much, and he lit them up. You know what I mean? He did a great job. Like I said, the Houston Texans, I think they showed that they're the class of the AFC South and one of the top 2 teams right now in the AFC. And we got to wait and see about them. But the Colts, I put them in the playoffs, and I have a lot to observe within the next 2 weeks to see if I really feel like they're going to. And with the blowout special, the 49, like I was very excited to talk about this game more, but the 49ers just blew out the Jets. It was 32-19. Really wasn't a close contest. Chris McCaffrey didn't even play, and they still did whatever they wanted to do to them. It was bad. It was bad. Even their backup, the backup for them. Well, first of all, Brock Purdy, because I want to keep it consistent. He was 19-29 for 231 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So I'm still keeping an eye on Brock Purdy. For me, for you to say you're a top quarterback, because people keep telling me how great he is and how he's like the next best thing. You have to earn that, man. You can't just say I'm the next best thing. So I'm still waiting to see no touchdowns, no picks in a game. It didn't matter. And that's kind of the point that I've always made about Brock Purdy. His team is so great that it didn't even matter. I mean, Jordan Mason came in 28 carries, 147 yards, and a touchdown. And Deebo Samuel had a rushing touchdown. Brandon Ayuk didn't even play all off season. Like he wasn't even there all off season. And he still wasn't effective, and it still didn't matter. That's just the kind of defense that they have. I mean, this team is OP. So I think because Christian McCaffrey, if I'm not mistaken, has like Achilles tendonitis, I think they can sit him down for a little bit. I think they can give him a good three, 3 or 4 games off, and I think that won't matter. It's showing that. Aaron Rodgers coming back, had 167 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And of course, this game was over in the fourth quarter, and they benched their starters. Yeah, man, not much to say for them. So I wanted to say that. But the game that I loved watching the most, and I did think this was a fantastic game. The Detroit Lions beat the LA Rams 26-20 in overtime. Let's read the stats and then I'll say it. And this will be the final game that I'll talk about in terms of week 1. Matthew Stafford, and this is what I'm saying about this game. I hate this is the game that we're probably going to do a real big clip on. I hate calling them the losing team because I was that impressed with what the Rams did. Matthew Stafford was 34 of 49 with 317 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick. Kyren Williams had 18 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp had 14 carries. I did it again with this daggone carries. 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua actually got hurt during this game, which is a common thread. In terms of sacks, John Johnson III had a sack. Excuse me, he had a pick. Were there any other picks? No. Jared Verse, first game as a Ram, had a sack. And also Byron Young also came in with a sack. Now for the winning team, the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, he was 18-28, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. David Montgomery had 17 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had 11 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Jameson Williams had 5 receptions for 121 yards and a touchdown. This is the game that people were waiting to see for Jameson Williams. This is what they want to see. This is why people feel what they feel about the Detroit Lions. This is it. Jameson Williams. Boom. Like Amon St. Brown, he didn't even have a game. He wasn't even it was like he wasn't even there. 3 receptions for 13 yards. And that's when you know you got a team. When your best option isn't even they take that away, you could still go and put up numbers, it showed itself. Let's see what happened here. Kirby Joseph had a pick. And let's see who else had a sack. Marcus Davenport had a half a sack. Some of these names I can't say. Levi O. I'm just gonna leave it at Levi O. He had a half a sack. And Aiden Hutchinson had a sack, and boom. Listen, I don't even know where to start with this game because the Lions won 26-20, and the Rams outcoached them and outplayed them, and the Lions definitely still won. This would be a game that the Lions would always lose in their history. In the Lions' history, they would always lose this. And it just shows you how developed they are, that they can win a game where they've been outplayed and outcoached. The Rams lost offensive linemen. They lost Puka Nacua. They lost they lost a lot of pieces. Excuse me for not knowing all the pieces. But they lost so many pieces, and they just found another way to play, another way to win, another way to coach. This is like when they were losing all these pieces and I'm watching all these people roll off the field, I said, "Oh, this is going to be bad." and they were in a position to win at one point, and the Lions had to figure out how to win this game again. And then over time, they just decided we can run the ball on you. And this could absolutely be the preview of the NFC Championship game. The one thing that I think people are going, that's going over people's heads, because we're watching the Chiefs, we're watching Patrick Mahomes become potentially the the greatest quarterback of all time, or best quarterback of all time, or he's on that trajectory. Chiefs they might three-peat, win 3 Super Bowls back to back to back, and that's never happened. The LA Rams just showed you the greatest rebuild ever. So going back a couple years, the Rams sold the farm to get their Super Bowl. They were paying so many people and giving up so many draft picks. People were saying, how are they paying this many people? How, like, what are they giving up to it? And anytime that you overpay, or not, I don't want to say overpay, when you pay for Super Bowls and you give up picks, you give up your future. You give up your future to win right now. And without first round picks, and without cap space, and with losing players, especially like an Aaron Donald, who potentially could be the best defensive tackle of all time, with losing everything that they lost, they've made the playoffs last year, and they've taken who I think could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl to overtime when they lost everything. We've never seen this. For the Rams, salute to the Rams. I give them I applaud the Rams. Listen, I want people to understand. We just watched the greatest rebuild ever, because they never missed the playoffs in a rebuild when they gave up their entire future to win that Super Bowl. And that's all I got to say about them. I'm very impressed with the Rams. I'm very impressed with the Rams. All right. So that was week 1. Week 1 in the books. Like I said, it was very exciting. My God, week 1 was amazing. I'm very excited to see what happens with the rest of the season. So I'm going to pick a couple games and give my prediction on them. So on Thursday, we got Buffalo and Miami. And is it in Miami? I believe it's in Miami. Hold on. Let me just get that. Yes, it's in Miami. Hard Rock Stadium. Yeah, that's Miami. So it's in Miami. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I think the Bills might sweep the Dolphins. That's exactly how I feel. So week 2, Buffalo in Miami. I'm picking Buffalo. I think they're the more physical team. I think they're in the trenches. They're stronger. I think they have a decisive advantage at quarterback. Yeah, I'm picking the Bills. 49ers Vikings, that's not interesting. Seahawks Patriots, not interesting. Giants Commanders, not interesting. Chargers Panthers is not interesting. Saints Cowboys isn't interesting, but Saints win this game, we gotta start talking about them now. But I'm holding off on that. And I don't think it's very interesting. The Colts Packers would have been very interesting, but Jordan Love's not gonna be there, so that's fine. Browns Jags, not interesting. Jets Titans, it's not interesting. Jets just better not lose, or it's gonna be very bad. Bucks Lions, not interesting, because I expect the Lions to win, just like that. Ravens Raiders, not interesting. Rams Cardinals, not interesting. I I think it could be a good game, but we're gonna skip over that. Bengals Chiefs. Now this is exactly what I was talking about. The storyline. Can you imagine the storyline if the Bengals start off 0-2, losing to the New England Patriots, and then they gotta play the Kansas City Chiefs? The only reason this is interesting is because he's actually like 4-1 against the Chiefs. The Bengals are actually like 4-1 against the Chiefs, so I'm very curious to see. We'll see. I mean, but if the Bengals start off the season 0-2, they in some serious trouble. They're in some serious trouble. Bears Texans. Now I really want to see. All right, so let me just say this: I expect the Houston Texans to win at home, but I really want to see the bounce back of Caleb Williams and what their ceiling looks like. And I think playing a team like the Houston Texans will bring out the best in them. And then finally we got the Eagles and Falcons in Philadelphia. It's in Philly, right? Yep, in Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. I got the Eagles winning this, and actually, I think that puts the Falcons in some real trouble, be starting off 0-2. But in the NFC South, I'm just not one. I'm just not a believer in the NFC South. So I think even starting off 0-2, they could be just fine. But I do think the Eagles are going to take this one. So the games that I have a watch on are the Eagles Falcons, and I have the Eagles there. The Bears Texans, I have the Texans there, and the Bills Dolphins, and I got the Bills. So, guys, this was a great show. We got to be alone. We didn't need all of the noise that these co-hosts come on here with. You see what I'm saying? You see, but like you're gonna see this, like you're gonna feel the difference. You know what I mean? But don't worry, they'll be back next week. They'll be back, and all your favorites are gonna be back real soon. Guys, you know you can check us out on Spotify and YouTube for our full episodes, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We all over the place. And unfortunately, they're not here because you know I love telling them that they ain't here when they're here to their face. But I'm gonna say it anyway, cause you don't know football. I'm your host Tariq. Thank you always for tuning in. Love you guys, and I will see you next week. Peace.